Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for November 21st, 2024. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you, everybody. And as your host for the evening, let's start by introducing ourselves. All the way to my far left, please.
Gaspar Bimber.
Michael Donlin.
Richard Tripp.
Crystal Morin, Secretary.
The board chair, Lynn Perkins.
Craig Corbett, Vice Chair.
Jim Tietzel.
And all the way to our far right is Code Enforcement Officer Robert Mackey, and our clerk is Lucy Peoples. And some announcements. These proceedings are scheduled to end at 10 p.m. and are audio-video recorded. And in the event of an emergency, please exit to the rear of the room. Don't use the elevator. Someone will assist you out. And please shut off all cell phones, iPads, iPhones, anything else that can create a distraction to the proceedings. And that being said, I don't think I have missed anything, so let's move on with our first case, which is 24-134, represented by Patricia Panciaco for Aaron Swope. This case has been called back and was tabled from the last meeting. And that being said, I'll take a motion to go into deliberation. Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Got a second, please.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Moran gives us a second. All in favor, any discussion on that? Mr. Tripp?
No, thank you.
And Mr. Corbett? No, okay, very good. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No opposition? Let's open up the discussion. Anybody have wish to lead off? Mr. Tripp, you have any commentary to start with?
Well, this is an interesting case. On the appellant's side, the position is that the parcels or tracts that are identified on the deed, or actually described on a deed, were involuntarily merged. On the I don't see that as being proven. I spoke, it's one of these things that before something can be involuntarily merged, there has to be separate lots that existed, and I haven't found that to be proved. So the other thing is that there's another piece of property that is within this current existing lot that was acquired through a tax lien, and I don't remember that this being discussed on the paper that the packet that you give us, where there was a map. There was tract 1, tract 2, and a 50 by 100 foot lot that abutted the court, the Davis Court.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in the weeks we had between the initial discussion and now. I found that in 1944, that parcel had been acquired by Cothrell as part of a tax lien that somebody hadn't paid. So, this is it was interesting that like I said, you guys never mentioned that. It's on the one map that you showed us, and I had to do a little search in the registry to find that. The lot that was acquired via the tax lien had originally been purchased in, let's see,
Mr. Burgess?
in 1905 by a Joseph Russo. And he had failed to pay his taxes in 1942, and it was then acquired by, let's see, like I said, the Cothrell, Osmond Cothrell, and March 7th of 1944. So, like I said, you guys have never mentioned that, even though you did identify the lot as being there and had a book and page number that we could research. You know, so I believe that the purpose behind involuntary mergers is to merge lots that are not, do not meet the current zoning or whatever zoning conditions. You know, and you've I know that the town of Derry has no records of merging those parcels together. So, like I said, there's no proof to me that, you know, the lots were not merged by consolidation instead of, you know, involuntary merger.
So directing the, you know, commentary into the board here as we're in deliberation. Mr. Corbett, anything you wish to add, or Mr. Burgess? Or reflect back to Mr. Tripp's comments?
Go after Mr. Burgess.
From what everything I've looked through, and I am sure that the town of Derry council, the town council had looked through this, and as well as the planning board had looked through this, and found that there was no involuntary merger from what we could see. There was something about a 1974 case, which I still haven't seen, that portrayed this as a single lot. So I think it should remain as that single lot. I don't think there is an involuntary merger here.
Okay. Mrs. Moore, anything?
No, not really. They've already stated how I feel as well. With my research, I couldn't find anything either.
Mr. Corbett, anything reflectively here from you?
Yeah, definitely agree with Mr. Tripp. This is definitely the most unique case that we've heard to this point. And, you know, what I found the most interesting on it is that the burden of proof lies with the town. And reviewing all the documentation, you know, it does become difficult, but the more you look into what the burden of proof would be, or even the RSA 674, 39AA, what we get is that one of the burdens of proof would be the preponderance of evidence, which is really requiring the trier of fact. And one of the quotes, or one of the definitions, is that if the existence of fact is more probable than its non-existence. And I kind of go to that as the burden, because when we talked with Ms. Robidoux at the last meeting about what the process would be of notifying this, really what the argument that we're hearing is that there isn't proof that this didn't happen, but the only proof would exist if it did. So the burden on the town is to prove a document that wouldn't exist if it didn't happen. I think right there that the town's definition of how they handle this is more probable that it was done voluntarily than involuntarily, if at all. And I think, furthermore to that, the plain language of RSA 674-39AA is that the voluntary merge means any overt action or conduct that indicates an owner regarded the set lots as merged. And I feel that took place both times that it came before the ZBA. And when the owner is then representing it as a single lot for the appeals or for a variance, they're recognizing that it was voluntarily merged in that scenario. So I think for those reasons, I I don't see that an appeal would be granted, but there is a lot to unpack with it.
Well, and I think as we've discussed, looks like 3 different times, the thing that Mr. Tripp found, plus what we've seen through documents we've looked at, that these were merged by the individuals and not the town. That's just what I see.
So I look at this, it's just slightly different. You know, I had to pull up the minutes from the prior meetings, and I saw that consistency of portraying this as a single lot. And I think what Mr. Corbett points out is that it's up to the town to prove that it was done intentionally. And I don't see it in that same light. I don't think that it was merged or taken, separated. I think that the portrayal of the applicants prior to this just assumed that it was one full parcel, not separated. But the problem is that I never see where anybody says, I want to combine them. And that's where I see that the burden of proof falls, is that, that somebody has to be able to say, well, no, they intended to make it one lot, or keep it separate. So it gets a little convoluted, and one of the things that gives me some interference on it is the easement, you know, to access and get in and out of this, which I guess becomes officially Davis Court. And I don't, and so in some instances you have to say, well, if you want an easement in the middle of that makes it 2 separate lots. But an easement doesn't necessarily mean that they've subdivided with that intention, even though it's written like that in a survey. I think relative to the town council's decision, their way of looking at this is simply from an administrative aspect, but not a judicial aspect, and not considering the statutes or the preponderance of evidence, so on and so forth, that would be relative to just a quasi-judicial proceeding process, which is what makes this board unique, is that we don't look at things in an administrative way necessarily, though we can use that to evaluate our decisions. So it's one of these cases, in my view, that kind of, it falls between the cracks in a few different ways, because it has an adjustment to the lot line, but the adjustment is, as we've learned, is not relative to the center of the lot. It has an easement, as I've indicated, that breaks up the parcel slightly, and as it started as 2 lots at one point, it's noted in surveys separately, but the owner at one point decides to essentially put in what I deem as a driveway in through the center of it. So that's kind of how I see this. Convoluted as I speak reflects the convoluted of the applicant, or the application, I should say. Anybody's welcome to refute or align with my thinking on this, if they'd like to chime in. No? Mr. Tripp, you all set?
I tend to agree with you in that the property back when did originate as separate lots. There was 3 separate lots, you know, and I don't remember the exact dates, but this was a period of when the that area was being developed, and somewhere around 1905, I believe. So you have the one piece of land which is essentially landlocked, I believe, which is the reason for the easement. And then you have the piece to the north, which is a fairly, but it's bigger, it's a bigger piece than the 50 by 100, you know, because if you look at that area, the, that whole area was split up, you know, and sold in that time frame, you know, but the landlocked piece was not split up because obviously whoever was doing the development didn't want to put a road in. You know, but in order to, you know, access the landlocked piece, you know, someone gave him an easement, you know, and as time went on, they acquired the one piece through the tax lane, and the other piece just when they purchased it. So, like I said, to me, this seems more like a consolidation of the parcels than an involuntary merger.
So you think it was, your feeling is you feel it was a voluntary decision to make it?
Yes.
Well, one of the other things that I forgot about until right now is the fact that they had the house here and a swimming pool there, which is on the same property. So that would seem to me that they're merging the two together if you're putting part of the house proper being along with their swimming pool that belongs to the house. I'd almost forgotten completely about that, the old swimming pool that was there.
I could, if you're using that as the declaration to say it was a voluntary merger, I don't think it's unusual for anyone to have a home in one place and a swimming pool in another.
I don't
Movie
know.
stars do it all the time.
Well,
The-
these people weren't movie stars.
The
let's put it that
cement
way.
pond, yeah.
I just think it would be odd for someone to put a swimming pool on a separate lot if they didn't think it was part of the same lot.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Any follow-up, Mr. Corbett? Or are you all set?
No, I think Mr. Burgess' point is kind of that overt language that I touched upon, but I think it's tough. I think it's tough in all regards. I think it's tough that, you know, and honestly, that the standard that the town held, you know, of the record keeping up until this point in the 70s or 80s is also, you know, makes it very difficult. But I have nothing else really of substance to add.
The acquisition of the parcel in a tax lien, also, and just different to Mr. Tripp's point, in my mind, doesn't create, that acquisition itself doesn't create a merger to me. I don't see anything that in my mind that makes me want to say, oh yeah, they were trying to just accumulate one whole property and then void any future potential of subdividing the property or keeping that aspect of it in place. So that's just my difference with Mr. Tripp's viewpoint on that. So anyway, if there's not any more deliberation on the points, this board, the 5 sitting members, need to decide whether or not the vote that we make will be to, in the light of handing this back to the town council with points of view that we want to make, enlightening the town council, or whether or not this board wants to make the decision and override the town council's decision in its entirety. Mr. Burgess?
I think we should go with the town council.
You want to remand this back with instruction? All right. Mr. Corbett, what do you think?
I would remand this back with instruction. Granted, you know, don't know if they were called, but I would have liked to have heard from them during this. So I think sending it back with some instruction would be more beneficial than just an overrule at this
Okay.
time.
Mr. Tripp?
I agree, remanding it back would be my position.
Okay. Ms. Moran?
I do as well.
Okay. I would have been fine either way, making the decision here and overriding, but understand if we remand it back to the town council, it would be with instruction of what we've found and then allow them to make that decision. That being the discussion, kind of going into this backwards, I would ask for a motion that on the motion deciding this appeal, that this would be remanded back to the town council. Could I have that motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question here?
Yes, sir.
Aren't we supposed to come out of deliberative session first?
We're not going anywhere yet. I need a motion
Oh.
to
I'll make that motion.
thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Corbett makes the motion that this decision will be to remand this back to the town council. I need a second, please.
I'll move it. I'll second it.
Mr. Tripp seconds that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. I'll support that motion. All right? That means we're going to do this with instruction. And now we have to structure the motion with the instruction to it.
Oops, I forgot to shut.
Is that your phone?
Sorry.
Somebody will have to create that instruction on that motion. Mr. Corbett, do you want to work on that?
I'll try to come up, yeah, I just need a moment or two.
You can make a motion to reconsider if you think this is going to create a problem, but
I just don't have the right way to word it. Or,
this can be open discussion. It doesn't
yeah, I
lie-
think where we're at is, before we start to form it, I'd like to know what it is that we want to see from the board, or what it is that we think would need to be re-reviewed or called for further question or review, rather than just kind of a vague,
Okay.
recommends the town council. Yeah. Trying to think of this.
All right.
Would it be easier just to say we disapprove the request?
You mean reconsider the motion and let this board make the decision versus remanding it?
Yeah.
You can do that. If you want to rescind that, if you think it's easier now that essentially I came into this backwards, by the way, because you would make the motion, it would be seconded, and then the position would be discussed, therefore leading to the motion. So, that's on me. I took you into this backwards, but you would need, so now you've essentially seen the discussion, and if it doesn't fit for what you want to do, or you feel it's overly complicating things, we can rescind that motion and reconsider and then make the decision here solely, if you'd like. So we're stuck and we've kind of gone in a circle, and I understand why.
Okay,
Well, let me go back through. Mr. Burgess, what would you rather do? Make the decision here for the applicant or send it back?
I think that the town council and the planning board has done their job, and I think we should make the decision.
Very good. Mr. Corbett, what say you? Mr. Tripp,
Yeah,
what do you
I'll-
think?
I would rather make the decision here.
Okay, Mr. Corbett?
I
Ms.
have no
Moran?
opinion, yeah.
No, I agree with what Mr. Burgess said. I believe they've done their due diligence and did the best with what they have.
All right, so I understand we are circling around. Mr. Corbett, what do you want?
I'll go in favor with the board.
We'll go make the decision here?
Yep.
Very good,
Well, I'll make a motion to reconsider then.
very good. You want to withdraw that prior motion, Mr. Tripp?
Yeah, I'll withdraw the initial one
Thank
that I
you.
put through, and I'll second Mr. Tripp's.
All right, that's on me. I'm sorry for the confusion. Mr. Tripp, you'll second Mr. Corbett's?
Yes.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. I'm sorry again for the confusion. So this board has decided that they will, that we will make the decision here versus remanding it. Understand, just a note, I've never had to go through this before, so Attorney Panciaco continues to bring us unusual cases.
Should I make the motion to come out of deliberative session?
Not yet.
Okay.
Hang on, I'm thinking. We want to go back to any conditions that we want to put on this motion, understanding we structure in the affirmative. Any thoughts from anybody on any conditions they would like to see on this, or just leave the motion intact as it sits? This is a yes or no decision.
I think leaving the motion intact as it is, because I don't think there isn't any other conditions that would be applied.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tripp, what do you say?
I would leave the motion the way it is.
Okay. Mrs. Moran, you fine with that?
I am, I agree, as presented.
Mr. Corbett?
Yeah, I concur.
All right, thank you very much. That being said, our motion is structured. Now, Mr. Burgess, you can bring us
I
out
will
of
make the
deliberation.
motion to come out of deliberative session.
Thank you. Second somewhere, Ms. Moran?
I'll second it.
Mr. Tripp, thank you. Ms. Moran's voice got deeper. All right. All in favor of coming out of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're outside of deliberation. Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 24-134 for Patricia M. Panciaco on behalf of owner Aaron Swoop to grant the appeal to the October 1st, 2024 decision by the Town of Derry Town Council denying his request to restore the pre-merger status of his two involuntarily merged parcels pursuant to RSA 674.3.AA, parcel ID 27108, zoned MHDR. That concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second.
I'll make that second.
On the motion,
Okay.
yes, we'll grant the appeal affirmatively to the applicant. A no is a denial to the applicant for
Okay.
their, on the, not for their appeal, but for the decision which this board has decided to make the decision here. That motion has been seconded, it's on the floor. Is there any further discussion from any of the board members on that motion? Seeing no gestures, we'll have a reading of the finding of fact. Mr. Corbett, if you'd like to produce that commentary, I'm sorry.
Yep. Finding of fact for case 24-134. The board found that the applicant is appealing the October 1st, 2024 decision by the Town of Derry Town Council denying his request to restore the pre-merger status of his involuntarily merged parcels. The Town Council denied the applicant's request to restore the parcel to two separated parcels, which was contended to be involuntarily merged by the town. The ZBA will either reverse or affirm the council's decision with tonight's vote. The board also includes all facts found in the meeting minutes for this application and incorporates all meeting minutes into its finding of facts and decisions. Does anybody have any additional items to add?
No.
Nope.
No, I guess I'm all set. I have no amendments to the finding of fact. Therefore, and no gestures from the board to modify Mr. Corbett's finding of fact. So let's move this for a vote. All in favor of moving the motion for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. If you'd make sure to give clear your reasons for your answer or your vote, I'd appreciate that. Mr. Corbett?
Sorry, could you repeat how we are stating this vote?
Yeah, a yes grants the applicant in favor and gives him the, reverses what would be deemed the involuntary merger.
Well, I did struggle with this one. I do vote no on this. I feel that the ZBA cases in 2011 and 2015, along with the utilization of the parcels as one lot for the last however many years, do show overt actions. So therefore, I don't feel that this was involuntary or shown to be involuntarily merged.
Okay. Mr. Burgess?
I say no. I believe that the town council and the planning board did the due diligence in finding that this was not involuntarily merged.
Very good. Mr. Tripp?
I vote no. I believe that the acquisition of the property was incremental and that the intent was to consolidate the property into one lot.
Okay, Mrs. Moran?
I also vote no for, I feel that the town as well did their due diligence with this case and with the material provided. I agree.
All right. The chair will vote yes on this. As I indicated, I haven't seen anything here that specifically says I want to merge all of this, though it's portrayed that way in the 2011, 2015 cases. But I don't see anything that specifically says somebody wanted to have that. I think that the applicants prior probably just saw the frontage of this and looked at it without a defining line because the intents of those applications. But I don't think that, I think without evidence saying that the applicant asked for all those merged, I think this becomes an involuntary matter, taking. Nonetheless, Mr. Swope, Ms. Pantiaco, the application is denied by a vote of 4-1. Of course, if you're aggrieved by this decision, you have 30 days to ask this board for reconsideration. And after that,
Okay,
matter would be, I suppose, susceptible to the HAB as well as the Superior Court. Okay?
Thank you for
Very
your
good.
time.
Have a good evening. Thank you. All right, next case up is Nicholas Hansis, and this was tabled from the prior board meeting 2 weeks ago. This is case number 24-135. Good evening, Mr. Hansis.
Good evening, board.
Welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
You understand our protocols, all right?
For the most part, yes.
Read the application, you can read the face page if you'd like, and,
Okay.
but stay to those criteria. And then once you get through that, we'll have discussion back and forth.
Okay.
Okay?
The proposal is for 4 Mark Avenue, map 59, lot 13. What I'm looking to do is to demo the existing 2-bedroom home that's there, and it's a non-conforming lot, and I'd like to rebuild a similar house. It will be a 2-bedroom, 1-bath as the original, but increase the size from a 20 by 13, which
Mr.
is...
Hansis, can I get you to talk close to the microphone, please?
Sure.
You almost have to eat these things to speak.
Say again?
You almost have to eat these things to get anything
Understood.
into
Sorry
them.
about that. I'll start once again. The location of the property is 4 Mark Ave, map 59, lot 13. The proposal as such is I'm looking to demo the existing 2-bedroom house that is that's on a non-conforming lot and rebuild a similar house that will be a 2-bedroom, 1-bath as the original, but increase the size from a 20 by 32, which is the current home, to a 24 by 40, with an abatement for all mechanical systems and a new 2-bedroom septic design. I'm seeking a variance on setbacks, Roman numeral 4, subsection 165, 46, Charlie 4, and the wetlands, which is Roman numeral 3, subsection 165, 20.9, due to the location of the house and the wetlands behind it. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the existing structure is an old camp-style house that is sitting on cinder blocks. It has a dug well and a concrete holding tank for septic. Building a new home and moving it on the property will have the sides and rear setbacks and will only require the front setback and the wetlands distance as a variance. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because the house is moved to conform to the site setbacks, and a new septic was placed on the property without damage to any of the trees on the property and is only within the 75-foot radius for wells will be for this house, none of the adjoining houses or the abutters. A substantial justice is done because a new house is to be built and a new well and septic systems to be installed per the state guidelines. The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished because a new 2-bedroom, 1-bath house is to be built with new well and septic systems, thus increasing the property values in the area. 5A1, no fair substantial relationships to general public purposes for the ordinance provision, specific application, provision of the property. Without a variance from the setbacks and wetlands, the open space footprint of the existing land would not allow for the house to be built. That is a single story. It would require the wetlands to be filled in for the building envelope as per the surveyor's plan, which I've submitted in my packet. The proposal use is a reasonable one because I would be rebuilding the single-story home with only an increase of size by 4 foot wide and 8 feet longer. So this way here, the rooms can meet the International Building Code for bedroom dimensions. The house would be very close to the size that it is now. If the criteria in subparagraph A are not established, an unnecessary hardship will be deemed to exist only if owning to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. Property cannot be reasonably used in strict conformance with the ordinance, is therefore necessary to enable a reasonable use of it. The other properties in the area have additions added on to them as a second story or raised to have a basement instead of a crawl space. I'm looking to rebuild a house which is something that is true to what was currently on site. The current house is too far gone by racking and twisting to be saved and will have to be torn down so it can be rebuilt to enjoy the property and the lake.
All right. Seems almost self-explanatory, but you have opportunity to put it in your own words outside of the scripted language.
Okay. Well, what I'm looking to do is, my son had bought 9 Hilda Ave right around the corner from it. And that's a 20 by 32. We actually jacked that up about 8 feet into the air. And we took out the existing crawl space that was there. And we put in a brand-new basement. And because of the lot size, where the well is, where the septic is, we were not able to have a set of stairs to go down into the basement. To get to anything mechanical, you have to go outside and around. But we did have to bring the electrical panel into the structure. By increasing this property size by 8 feet, which will allow us to have something similar to what we have done at 9 Hilda, and we'd have a set of stairs on the inside of the property. So this way here, access to the mechanicals and to the circuit breaker panels would be sufficient for someone to come in from the inside, not have to go outside.
Would you, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
would you feel that the additional space that you're requesting would be, or is necessary for these stairs?
Oh, for the stairs, and also to, this way here, by expanding it for an extra 4 feet, we could have a room width of 10 feet in each room. So this way here, you have 10 feet, there's your 20 foot. You do 30-inch closets in between the 2 bedrooms, front and back. And then you have, it's all gonna be 2 by 6 construction. So that gives us an overall width of 24 feet. Currently, the house at 9 Hilda, we had to lengthen it, the rooms to get the square footage per the International Building Code for a minimum requirement for the bedrooms.
Thank you.
The structure is probably already in all of these setbacks, am I correct?
If you, actually, it's not. I have in the paperwork which I've submitted that has the requirements for the, let's see. Yeah, for the wetland requirements, if you open it up, you'll see that there is a dotted line which shows where the building setback is applicable. And right now, the building is actually in front of it. That would be this area here, sir. See this dotted line here as per the legend?
Got it.
I feel like I can approach the chair to better clarify it.
No, stay put for a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mackey, just kind of, we'll touch on with you into staff report here. There's a lot of pieces going on here. Is the structure currently in that, are we, is Mr. Hansis here because this is going to be a demolition of an existing non-conforming?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. I think the existing home right now, well, it may be a little more centered, but just in looking at it, it still would be in violation of the front setback and certainly in violation of the 75-foot wetland setback, because the wetland that's in the corner has been deemed to be over an acre. I think if you do the setback with the wetlands, it pretty much encompasses most of the lot. So without some relief to the wetlands, there's not much you can do there, so.
And that's shown on this one here, which I have highlighted.
Yep.
Which is the area of the wetlands that they have stated on the plot plan.
And if this were a remodel, Mr. Mackey probably wouldn't have to be here, correct?
Yeah, as long as they weren't adding on to the property, he could remodel it, yeah.
And in Mr. Hans's testimony, we have a rough-looking building. Looks like there's still some life in those shingles, though.
Actually, sir, if you take a look at the property from the opposite view, the front part of the property is actually leaning forward and the body is twisted.
Yeah, noting that you have indicated in your testimony that the building's racked,
Yes, sir.
and
Yeah.
there makes a lot of work there. Do we have a percentage, Mr. Mackey, on a building that gets to a certain point, we have to tear it down, or is it just, in our community, is it discretionary?
It's discretionary, yeah.
Well, and I would say that seeing the structure so close to the road as it is, and that is the part that's up on cinder blocks, am I correct?
That's correct, sir. The front of the house from the property line is actually 8 feet away from the property line, 12 feet away from the edge of the roadway.
And you've just purchased this property recently?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Are you under agreement, or did you already purchase it?
I own the property. I've purchased, we've closed on it. You have a copy of my deed.
Okay. Any questions from anybody else? Seeing nothing there. Mr. Dietzel, you all set?
All set, sir.
All, everybody down on my left, you all set? Mr. Provencher, you got any questions?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, in that case, let's, you're all set, Mr.
Yeah, pretty much. The only other thing that I'd bring up is we made, in theory, you could vote to the front setback and vote for the wetland setback as two separate motions. So we did prepare that, or you can vote it as one motion with both sections.
Oh, that's why I'm
So
seeing three.
that's why you're seeing three. So however the board chooses to do it, it's pretty much, if you don't grant one, the other one becomes kind of useless, but technically it's two different sections, so it could be two different votes,
Okay,
so.
all right, good enough. Ms. Peoples, I assume it's the third page that consolidates both on that motion?
I think the front
First page.
The first page consolidates, okay.
says both
Okay.
articles.
Very good.
Yep.
Thank you. All right,
Can I ask a question?
you can. That's
Oh,
why we're
right.
here.
That's why I'm here? Oh, I thought it was just, so how far from the wetland is the house?
The current house or the proposed?
The proposed house?
The proposed house will be, in one corner, will be, I believe, 16.5 feet, and on the opposite corner, 22.5 feet, as stated by the plot plan from La Valley Surveyors.
All right, let me see if I can find that. All right, thank you.
A curiosity question about the use.
Curiosity, go ahead, Mr. Quota.
Just about the use of the house. I know you'd mentioned, I believe your son's moved right around the corner. Was the intent, are you guys going to be occupying the house? Is a house for rent, or what's the?
It'll be an investment property.
Thank you.
What do you do, just out of curiosity, with the dug well?
The dug well has been abandoned, sir.
Okay,
That's the one that's also shown here,
yep. I do
which is
see it.
right, actually,
Yep,
over to the, our butters by about 1.5 feet.
got it. Okay.
Is there an issue with the proposed well being so close to the septic?
Actually, in the septic plans, septic design, the proposed well is over on the opposite side of the property,
And
where the tree line
That's
is.
the well I'm referring to,
Yes.
not the dug well.
Yeah, the proposed well, that's as far as we can get it, because there are about 4 45-foot oaks that are in the area.
But I mean, is there a,
So did you do a waiver for the well to the septic proximity?
Yes, that's done through Benchmark. We have the approved well, septic design with the well shown.
I think I see a list of waivers there. Mr. Tripp, if you look at the DES approval for construction, it indicates at the bottom of the page, there's several waivers that are in place. Probably relative, one of them is the septic to well radius. Mr. Mackey, is it 75 feet in this community?
Yes, 75 feet.
Thank you.
And again, it's not unusual when you have, as you noted on that approval for construction, anytime you're dealing with wetland setbacks and so forth, typically the state puts waivers and conditions in, like the tank has to be watertight and so forth, and they allow a little bit for hydric B soils versus hydric A, but it's not unusual to see multiple waivers in this type of situation.
Does that help you, Mr. Tripp?
well, it answers my question.
Got enough, doesn't help you.
Because I've never seen a well that close to the septic. No. But if the DES people have approved it, then it seems that they know more about that than I do, and they have blessed it.
All right. Anybody else? Questions? Ms. Burgess, you all
So-
set?
Yeah,
Mr. Tripp?
The second page of the Dairy Mark Avenue for plan set, it doesn't really say it's wetland, it just says it's poorly drained. Now, is there
Yeah,
a
that's-
difference between wetland and poorly drained? Is poorly
No,
drained
but-
seasonal?
Poorly drained would still be considered wetland. You have poorly drained, you have very poorly drained. Very poorly drained is more of a hydric soil, has more water standing in it throughout the year. as poorly drained as probably more of seasonal wetland,
All right,
if that answers your question.
that makes it slightly more palatable.
Still wetlands,
Still
but
wetland, but, you know, it's,
not standing water wetlands.
it's not standing water, because, you know, in the spring, there's standing water and there's
Could be,
peepers in it. And the rest of
Could
the
be.
year, it's dry.
especially this year.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right, you all set, Mr. Tripp?
Until I think of something else.
Okay, good enough. All right, that being the case, let's call the public and see if we can get their input. Mr. Hansis, you'll have an opportunity for anybody that may call in remotely or within the room that wishes to make any comments, both affirmative or in opposition to your application. You'll have an opportunity to rebut, okay?
Thank you, sir.
You have some phone numbers up there. Mr. Corbett will help narrate what
Okay.
those are.
Yep, anybody at home who wishes to dial in, you're going to dial 646-558-8656, and your meeting ID is 323-909-140. Once in, you'll press star 9 to raise your hand. If you're having any technical issues, you're going to dial 603-845-5585. Someone will help you.
Awesome, thanks, Mr. Corbett. So we'll make that call to anybody who wishes to support this application. Within the room, this is your opportunity to come forward and be heard. You see anybody out there, Mr. Preventer?
Seeing none, rise online,
All
Mr.
right,
Chair.
So we'll see nobody remotely wishes to speak positively for you, Mr. Hansis. So let's see how the next phase goes. Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition to this application, this would be your opportunity either remotely or within this room to come forward and have your voice heard. All right, that call's been made. Seeing no gestures or anybody rise here in the room. Anybody out there, Mr. Preventer?
Seeing none, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, well, then we'll consider in this case that we've met the statutes for a butter input. So anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Hansis? Very good.
Nothing at this time.
All right, that being said, we can take a motion and go into deliberation if no one else has any questions.
I'll make the motion to go into deliber.
Mr. Burgess anxiously moves us forward in the agenda. Mr. Tripp, you want to help us out?
I'll second it.
Very good, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. We're deliberating. Anybody have any objections to this case?
No, but I have some stuff I can add, because I do know the location really well. It probably should have been fixed like 10, 15 years ago.
The structure?
Yeah,
Really
and
good.
I don't believe, at least maybe in the last couple years, but before that, it was only seasonal, so even if it is an investment property, it's never really been just a regular property, and it's, I think, the last one there that hasn't been redone.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that we got a current non-conforming structure on the lot, and that if we rebuilt it in the exact dimensions, we wouldn't be here for the front setback or the wetland. But increasing the size of it allows for the bedrooms to meet the IBC code. So it's, it's kind of a matter of either way. I feel like you need a variance either way. For this one, the variance is created to make the living situation a little bit better. I have an easier, for that reason, I don't think it's egregious to now require a variance for 2 items when you could have none, because I think it's a necessary evil.
Got it. Okay, Mr. Burgess?
Yeah, I went by this place. It probably should have been torn down a while ago.
Okay.
It's all racked up. It's, cinder blocks in the water, they don't settle the same way all the time.
Especially in the cold and thaw of New
Oh,
England, right?
heck yeah.
Okay, you all set?
I'm
Mr.
good.
Tripp, anything?
Well, I had some questions, and the gentleman was able to answer them, and Bob was able to assist with it, so I don't have any problems with this.
All right, very good. Well, I can concur with what everyone has stated in some way, shape, or form, with no arguments to anything. So that being the case, let's structure the motion. We have the state and town permits and inspections. I think that will suffice in this matter, where everybody's so overwhelmingly in support. If that satisfies everybody, let's take a motion, come out of deliberation.
Are you okay with using the first one?
Yes.
Okay, just
That would be
one,
fine.
Yeah, no need to
Thank you.
rule on that.
thank
I'll
you.
make the motion and come out and deliver.
I'm
And
sorry
I'll
again?
second it.
I said I will make, huh?
And I'll
Don
second
made
your
the
motion.
motion. adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you. Hey? All right, thank you very much. All in favor of coming out of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mrs. Moore, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 24-135 for Nicholas Hanses to grant a variance to the terms of Article 3, Section 165-20A, and Article 6, Section 165-46.c.4 of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to allow the structure to be replaced with a new 24 by 40 single-family dwelling, which will be located less than 35 feet from the front property line and less than 75 feet from a wetland greater than 1 acre. Parcel ID 59013, zoned MDR. And that concludes the reading of the motion. I'm just kidding. As presented with the following conditions. 1, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections, and that concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Who's got it?
Not me,
Mr. Tripp will have the
today.
second. There you go. Mr. Tripp, thank you. So that motion's on the floor. Any last conversation, comments on it? Seeing no gestures, Mr. Corbett, you have the finding of fact.
Yep, finding a fact for case 24-135. The board found that the applicant is requesting approval to demolish the existing dwelling and replace it with a new single-family home. The proposed structure requires a variance from the 35-foot front setback requirement, as well as a variance from the 75-foot wetland setback for a wetland over 1 acre. The new septic design for the 2-bedroom home has been approved by New Hampshire DES, and a state shoreline permit may be required. The shoreline permit will apply if the structure and/or driveway is located within 250 feet of the lake. The board also includes all facts found in the meeting minutes for this application and incorporates all meeting minutes into its finding of facts and decisions. Does anybody have any additions or addendums to make?
I do not.
Seeing no gestures there, on the finding of fact, all in favor of moving this motion for a vote, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Mrs. Moran,
Chair, I vote yes.
Mr. Corbett,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Mr. Perkins will make it unanimous, so congratulations, Mr. Hansis. Your application has been approved by a vote of 5-0. Anybody aggrieved by this has 30 days to ask this board for a rehearing or reconsideration. After that, recourse would be to Superior Court. Essentially, what we're saying is, if you think anybody's out there going to object to you, they have 30 days to do so. All right?
Thank you.
Good luck.
Very good. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Good luck.
All right. Next case, Andrew Bosco. Case number 24-136. Good evening.
Oh, that's him.
I am new to this, so I will do my best with, I believe I have to read.
Well, we'll do our best to have fun at your expense. How's
Perfect.
that?
That's what I'm here for.
So, fairly well-written, for the most part. The components doesn't guarantee you a yes or no, but just stick with what you've written and make sure you read that into the record as it's written, and you should be fine on your presentation. Okay? You have an application, right?
Yep, I do.
That's the criteria you want to read for us.
Correct me if I'm wrong on the application, I'm just making sure. I believe it's the printed piece that was given me before. I just want to make sure. Thank you. Okay. Number 1, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest because it promotes more housing during a time of a lack of housing. Number 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed because it promotes general welfare of housing opportunity in the community in an affordable fashion. Number 3, substantial justice is done because I'm trying to just make this right. This variance does not set up rules that determine justice. Number 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished because it may further improve values through potential fair housing options. Number 5, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. For the purposes of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application that provision to the property. The property was purchased as is, and it would be hardship to change it back into a single family. The proposed use is a reasonable one. The house was purchased and not modified as such. There are no construction changes. Part B, if the criteria in subparagraph A are not established, an unnecessary hardship will be deemed to exist if, and only if, owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from the properties in the area. The property cannot be reasonably used in strict conformance with the ordinance, and a variance is therefore necessary to enable a reasonable use of it. A variance is necessary to enable reasonable use of this property. The definition of unnecessary hardship set forth in subparagraph 5 shall apply whether the provisions of the ordinance from which a variance is sought is a restriction on use, a dimensional or other limitation on a permitted use, or other requirement of the ordinance.
Any questions from the board?
This time, there's a letter attached that I'd like to share. Anything further?
Mr. Corbett?
Sorry, Mr. Rosso, you had a letter attached. You'd like to share anything from that for the board at the time, or?
I'm deaf, I apologize.
I'm sorry, you had a letter. I was reading the letter as you were speaking to the board. Is there anything there you'd like to share?
Yeah, so
just kinda add clarity.
semantics wise, like we bought the house in December of 2023. We have not made any physical changes to the house whatsoever. And the former owner, very nice gentleman, was very tired. His wife and his mother passed away in that year, and he said, I'm just done with this. I know the zoning is wrong. You're doing it, is basically what I was told. I said, okay. And we just said, we'll take care of it. And essentially, we went through the process, bought the property, and here we are. So although I did buy the property as is, I have not made any changes whatsoever. I'm just trying to make it right.
Was this under a conventional mortgage?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And it's an interesting property. It looks like it shares the town line with us and with Chester.
That has been the fun part of this. Yes. I've already I went to the Chester Building Department. I talked to Bob Mackey about it, went to the town. I think there's a letter in there at the end explaining from their point of view, it does not impact them whatsoever to make the change. So I've already talked to them as well as the Chester residents.
No further questions at this time, Mr. Chair.
Fun at
Mr.
tax
Roscoe.
time.
Ms. Donlin?
Would be interesting at tax time.
Yeah, tax time is fun.
I do have a couple of questions. So,
Sure.
just looking at the floor plan, how are you anticipating dicing this up? You can exclude the ADU over the garage. That is somewhat irrelevant to what I'm asking, but.
Sure.
So are you anticipating somebody, like one unit being what appears to be the right side of the house here, and you walk in through the foyer and upstairs, and then the other people would utilize what is the left side of the house?
Correct.
Or
So
is
if you're
how you
looking,
plan on dicing that up?
no, it's a great question. So I think there's a floor plan in there where I draw lines and I show the exact
No, I
dicing
may
of
have not gone far enough.
No, you're okay. I'll explain just
There's a lot
verbally,
of
and you can
papers
see
here.
it as you go through. On the floor, go ahead.
Mr. Donlin, you're all set?
He can elaborate.
Okay, we have crosstalk going on, so I just want to make sure we have it clear for the record, that's all. Mr. Bosco, go ahead.
Sure. If you look at the floor plan, I believe I drew lines with one of the sections of the floor plan for the proposed plan to separate it. The left side of the house, as Mr. Donlin said, that'll be one of the units, and the other unit will be on the right side. There is a hallway that is already separating both units, specifically 2 doors. One of the doors on the left side will be one part of the unit, and the other unit, the right side, will be upstairs and downstairs.
Did he indicate to you when you sold it that it had an ADU in it?
I knew when I bought it, because the bank financed it this way, it was a single family with an ADU.
Got it.
They did not specify where the ADU was.
And so now you have the ADU,
Correct.
which is above the separated garage in Chester?
Attached garage. So the
You said
separated,
detached?
it's attached.
Oh, the attached,
So there's
got it, okay.
two-car garages.
Yep.
The detached garage is actually half in Chester, or no, it's actually all in Chester.
Yep,
The attached garage is in Derry.
okay. And now you have a roommate apparently?
Yes.
So where does the ADU exist?
The ADU is above the attached garage.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Which is in Derry.
Which is in Derry.
There is a letter from the Chester Town Hall too in there.
Bitch.
And so, I know Mr. Donlin asked this question, but again, trying to align that. There's many pages here, by the way,
I was overly thorough.
with heavy gauge paper too.
Nice paper.
Listen, I didn't spare any expense for this trip.
You got a baby on the way.
It's true.
Yeah.
Here we go.
And this is my wife Natalie. We probably should have had that introduction.
Say again?
This is my wife Natalie.
Hello.
Weird.
I can't fold the paper.
I don't see the hallway.
I feel like I'm trying to peel cardboard apart.
How often do you do that?
That's the upstairs.
Thank you.
So can you elaborate a little bit on there was a note about the refinancing or something to that extent, and you referenced earlier that you financed this house when you originally bought it approximately a year ago. What changes now about it? Because I mean, a house with two kitchens doesn't necessarily make two-family house. It just means you have a house with two kitchens in it. So, like, what roadblocks are you meeting with the loan department now that you didn't meet 11 months ago?
That's a good question. So when we went to buy the house as a single family with an ADU, that was what the loan is under as. But now if we go to refinance, and I have talked to the loan officer about it, he said you can do it as a single family with an ADU. It would be advantageous to consider it a two-family with an ADU. You will get better terms from a bank. And that was his blunt answer to me. He said you will get significantly better terms.
Sure. You'd have two houses.
Yeah, a two-family with an ADU.
Three, I suppose, yes.
He would basically, just so for more clarity, the bank would consider it because if you have a single family with an ADU, they can't consider rental income from 2 units. They can only say it from 1. So if you make it a two-family with an ADU, they can now consider it 2 rental incomes,
Sure.
which would support your case for having a better refinance.
Very well.
All set, Mr. Donlin?
I am.
Mr. Obimba? So how is it that we came to find out about this? Mr. Mackey, did you go kick in his door or what?
No, he actually came and approached us.
Okay.
I was of course, the property, I might as well get into my spiel, but it's kind of a unique property, and it's also one, if anybody tried to go out and take a ride by it, you literally have to go from Derry, I think it's into Sandown, and then Chester or whatever, and back into Derry, and then you get to this property. I know my involvement was, I believe, when the former owner was selling the property, or getting ready to sell, it was actually the ADU that's located above the garage. That had gone in without the proper approvals, let's say. So he ended up getting an after-the-fact permit, and we went in and inspected and did some things and got that part of it on the books. At that time, there was no mention about there being 2 kitchens or 2 units within the main house. And I guess it wasn't until the applicant came along and sought this variance that we discovered that there's the 2 units in the main house.
How big is the ADU? How many square feet? Is it in compliance?
900, I think.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but it is under the 800 that would be allowed. And it is attached, so I guess for all intents and purposes, it's a legal ADU at this point. And it's being assessed as such, a single with an ADU.
Okay.
Overall, how big is the footprint of this house? Just the house, not the garage.
The floor plan is there, so you should see square footage.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
believe-
add it all
I'm
up.
gonna, no, you're good. I think it's around 2,000 square feet.
24.
Okay.
Do not quote me on that exact number. That is
So
me
that's a
remembering.
2,400 square foot footprint, not total space?
Correct. I'd have to double check the floor plan math on my end. I apologize.
One of the diagrams here says Unit B, 900 square feet, and Unit A, 1,500 square
So then
feet.
I'm wrong, 2,400, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, just curious, you know, it looks like a sizable footprint, Mr. Corbett gesturing the first floor, where you draw the dividing line in it. And it does
Okay,
look
got it.
like a sizable footprint.
Mhm.
And then going back to the image of the structure itself.
Mr. Chair, while you look for that, just for the rest of the board, I found the PowerPoint presentation that was also attached to have additional photos of the layout and of the property that were helpful.
If you would like, if you want to present, I can go through them as well. I have a copy as well.
You have a what?
If you'd like, I know Lucy mentioned they could pull them up. I can go over the PowerPoint if you need me to help with that at all.
It's up to the board. Anybody wish to see the PowerPoint presentation, or is that not necessary?
There's no Google's Zoom?
So I'll highlight that because this is a good point. U.S. Postal Service calls this 713 Haverhill Road,
Okay.
Chester, New Hampshire.
Okay.
The U.S. mailing system calls it Route 121, Derry, New Hampshire. And I have called the U.S. Postal Service about this, and they said it is Chester. They have it as Chester in their system.
Really?
But Amazon, Google call it Derry. This has been the most wonderful time with this address.
There's a cell phone tower in town that's similar to that. The tower, everything is referenced as Derry, but not to sidetrack, with the fiber being brought in, everything is tracked that it's in Londonderry, because somewhere along the run, so I can feel your pain, traffic.
Yes.
Dealing with that.
In the packet, it says if it was Chester, they could have the two-family, so.
Yes.
That's why I couldn't find it on Google, on the, to get this, you know.
And I
Going
can
for Haverhill
only
Road,
find
it's
it
like,
as-
it's not coming up.
I only find it as 713 Haverhill Road, Derry.
Yep.
This is
Did you find it there?
welcome to my
Yes.
life.
Okay. All right, let's get that shared.
I understand your pain.
So it's a 2,400 square footprint being the basement, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's essentially a cape, has a second floor,
Yes.
and you're obviously in a rural area.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, it looks like from the land mass, you have plenty of potential for your septic. I see some septic note in here.
There's a design in there as well. But yes, there's plenty of room for the septic.
Has the septic, how old is the septic, do you know?
I do not know the age of the septic. Kent Septic recently pumped it and said it's in incredible condition, because I believe the former owner had one person living there for years.
I
Mr.
think the
Mackey?
home was constructed in '86, and I don't think we have anything saying it's been replaced since then.
I mean, how do we handle the design of it? If somebody comes in for an ADU, you know, if it's a half-acre lot, we want to make sure before you give a permit that they can accommodate that.
Yeah, I mean, typically what we do, which is what the state requires through the subsurface, is we have the owner prepare, or have a septic design prepared, provided that they have a septic design on file and the system is functioning. What they're required to do is have a new septic design put together that would include the expanded use. That gets approved by the state, gets on file, doesn't necessarily have to be installed until such time as the existing system fails. And what that does essentially is show that the lot can
handle it.
support the added use.
Which brings us to another technical dilemma, right? If their existing septic system, if they get a test pit, it's in, or, you know, and they get approval, that approval's good for 4 years. 10 years from now, the groundwater shifts, and then they have to go and get it tested again when the septic system fails, and then all of a sudden, maybe it can't because the water table has changed and you can't accommodate that septic, right? Well, those are the kind of
Worst case
oddities.
scenario.
It's like the postal route, right? One agency says one thing, the other says another, and but yet there is the complexity. All right, I think my concerns have been answered here. Anybody else have any questions? Nope. And Mr. Mackey, you've given us all your impressions.
Yes, other than were this to be approved, again, we'd be looking at after-the-fact permits and inspections and so forth to get that on the books. There would be I know that if it's no more than 4 units in an existing building, then sprinklers wouldn't apply, even though technically we're getting into 3 units, getting into multifamily. You could argue it's 2 units with an ADU or multi, but either way, the fire suppression wouldn't apply at this point.
Okay. All right. If no one else has anything else, you folks all set for now? Unless something else
Yes.
bubbles up?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. We'll make a call to public, and noting that we do have a petition from your closest abutters, that they don't seem to have any conflict. We'll see if that stays true here. We're gonna have some phone numbers posted up there, and Mr. Preventure, you have those on the screen?
Yes, Mr. Chair, they're on for TV.
Great, thank you. Mr. Corbett, you got those phone numbers?
Yep, anybody at home who wishes to dial in, you're going to dial 646-558-8656. Your meeting ID is 323-909-140. Once in, please press *9 to raise your hand. And if you're having any technical issues, please dial 603-845-5585, and someone will help you.
Great, thank you. So anybody within the room that wishes to rise and speak and be heard at this point, this would be your opportunity, both either for this application or opposed. And I'm sure that everybody finds this hard to believe, but there's no one here to watch this in the room, so people, reasonable to say that within the room, there's neither from any abutter. And anybody else out there, Mr. Preventure, remotely?
Seeing none rise, Mr. Chair.
All right, very good. So we'll consider that we've met the standard for public input. You folks dodged a bullet there. All right. Mr. Tripp?
I believe I've missed something on this. So there is, the ADU is above the garage,
Correct.
and there's 2 dwelling units in the attached house. So the second dwelling unit in the main house is, what, on the second floor?
First floor.
The first floor.
Yes.
So the first floor is divided somehow.
So the first floor, if you go back to the image of the house, it makes everybody, like I can explain.
Can you speak in the microphone?
Yep. So the first floor, 1 unit is all 1 level. The second unit is half of the house on the right side is 1 level, and then it's also on the second level. So there's stairs that go to the second level. If you look on the photo that they have, there's 2 doors on that right side where that entryway is. The door right there where the mouse is, that is all 1 floor. That is attached to the garage on the left of the front way, and then it goes to the right of the house, and there's half of that house. It goes farther in the back, is 1 level. The door on the right, where the mouse was before, that is half on the first floor, half on the second floor.
So when you bought the property, there was 2 dwelling units there.
There was, the piece that I'll tell you is that when we bought it, all that was there, including the ADU, so it was all present.
So they were renting half the house out?
What's that?
So they were renting half the house out?
Essentially, they called it a single family with an ADU.
But it was actually a multifamily and an ADU.
Correct.
So you had indicated that the wife and the mother had passed away with the seller.
Yes.
Did the mother-in-law or whatever have the other space?
I believe the way that he used the house was that the mother used half of the space and he lived on the other side to watch her.
Got it, okay. I don't know if you've had to say that already, but.
So the
No, I have not.
ADU wasn't used?
The ADU he never used it. He built it and didn't do anything with it.
So essentially, he had two ADUs.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, so,
wouldn't consider that.
yeah, what we got on the staff report is the initial owner built an ADU, but never permitted for it. So it seems like it's a guy who kind of just did work on his own. Then somehow the town found out about the ADU, permitted it after the fact. They then bought the house thinking it was a single family with an ADU and determined that from the other photos, the guy basically sectioned off the house into a two-family, but it's listed as a one-family. Then when they tried to refinance, the bank told them it would be more in their favor if they could correctly identify it as a two-family than a one-family.
You should have bought this house.
The two-family with an ADU. Yep. The old, what do they call it? A mother-in-law's apartment, or in-law's apartment?
All right, so we've had public input. Anybody have any discussion before we make a move into deliberative?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Corbett.
I'll make a motion to move into deliberative.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess, Mr. Corbett, and all in favor of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, who would like to start the conversation?
Get started.
Mhm.
Normally, an application like this, to be honest, would aggravate me. To find out that the owner first went forward with an ADU, then came back after the fact for forgiveness, then splits it to, a two-family, and then comes back. However, it's a different owner now, and just listening to the testimony, it seems like the last owner was just one of these people who was just going to kind of putter around, do what he wanted. And there's really no checks and balances, So in my opinion, I appreciate a new owner coming in trying to right the wrong, contrary to what I just said of how I'd normally feel. I would like, to me, I see the benefit in approving this is I'd like to get a set of eyes on everything in here and make sure that this was actually done up to code and that this is habitable, rather than being able to proceed with just, I don't want to say shoddy craftsmanship, potentially shoddy craftsmanship with people living in it as one family. So normally, I don't know, I'm typically divided on it, but I feel that this is the correct way to go to right a series of wrongs here.
Wouldn't that be under some, subject to state and town permits and inspections? Yeah.
Well, the situation here says you deny it and ask somebody to start pulling their house apart the way that they purchased, which becomes a detriment to a homeowner, especially a homeowner who's in the process of a refinance. Understanding he edges a little bit by getting clarity with this, edges a little bit favorably with his interest rate, but the hardship is that if you deny this, certain things have to start getting ripped out of a home that he's just purchased a year ago. I think that kind of falls in line with Mr. Corbett's thinking a little bit. And just assuring that everything is in compliance. So this is one of those rarities that I don't have tremendous opposition to. Mrs. Moran?
So I know for a fact that one of his abutters, the 43 Tenney Road, is a multifamily. And I know we're not supposed to, compare what the neighbor has, and that's a reason, but it does mean it would fit in with the character of the neighborhood. So I can understand when purchasing, there's other multifamilies in a random part of New Hampshire.
Plus, if you're looking at that house from the outside, it looks like a single-family home.
Yeah, it's remote and it's on a rural route and quite a large lot, so it's hard to disseminate what it's being used for either way, as a multifamily or not, so. Mr. Tripp, anything?
it's an interesting situation. It is what it is, I believe.
Okay, very good. I think, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections have been discussed. Septic matters and so on and so forth is overseen by code enforcement and the building inspector. If there are any other conditions here, we can list them, otherwise we'll come out of deliberation.
I feel like kind of, it's all encompassing. I think we're good to, I'll make a motion to come out.
Very good.
I'll
Thank you,
second
Mr.
it.
Corbett. Mr. Burgess seconds. All in favor of coming out of deliberation, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Mrs. Moore, you have a motion to read.
I make a motion on case number 24-136 for Andrew J. Bosco to grant a variance to the terms of Article 6, Section 165-48.A.1 of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to allow the existing 2 dwelling units located in the main house and the attached accessory dwelling unit, ADU, to remain on the property. Parcel ID 13025-002, zoned LDR, as presented with the following conditions. We have one, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections, and that concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. That motion's on the floor. Mr. Corbett, you want to do the finding of fact?
Yep, finding of facts for case 24-136. The board found that the property is located in the low-density residential zoning, which only allows, or district, which only allows for single-family dwellings along with attached accessory dwelling units. The house is currently assessed as a single-family dwelling with an in-law. An after-the-fact permit was issued for the in-law in 2023. The former owner created 2 dwelling units in the main house for a potential 3 dwelling units at the property. The applicant is seeking a variance to allow the second dwelling unit to remain and the property to be utilized as 3 total units. The board also includes all facts found in the meeting minutes for this application and incorporates all meeting minutes into its finding of facts and decisions. Does anybody have any additions or addendums to make?
Seeing no gestures there, all in favor of moving this motion for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mr. Corbett,
I vote yes.
Ms. Moore,
Chair, I vote yes.
Mr. Tripp,
I vote yes.
Mr. Burgess.
I vote yes.
The chair will make it unanimous. Congratulations, folks. Your application has been approved by a vote of 5-0. Anybody aggrieved by this decision has 30 days to ask this board for a rehearing, reconsideration. After that, recourse will be Superior Court, but I have to suspect that you are safe.
It
Good
only
luck.
took- It
Have a
only
good
took an hour
evening.
and a half to do this.
Congratulations, good luck with the pregnancy.
Thank you.
So where do you actually pick up your mail?
I actually address the mail as Chester,
Yeah.
and I go across the street to, like, we put like a 3-thing mailbox, but it's a state road, and I gotta tell you, the plows love my mailbox.
We've hit it over this a few times.
I've lost 4 mailboxes.
That's
Honestly, we've been told.
You get a steel post and you put it 4 feet in,
I'm
and you get a
close to that.
chain, and so we can bang it. and
That's a good
won't knock
point.
it over.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good luck, take care.
Enjoy.
Have a good night. Good luck. Oh, Lord.
All right.
Mr. Chair, prior to, apologies for jumping ahead, but I still have not had a chance to review either set of minutes, the prior case or from last month.
Okay.
So I just, before you get into anything, just like to establish that for the board. I'll probably be making a sweeping motion to table both.
Okay. Good enough. Mr. Corbett asked for, to table the minutes from 10:17 and 11:07.
Second.
To the next meeting, seconded by Mr. Tripp. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. I see no correspondence or letters at all. So I guess in that regard, our business for this evening is wrapped up, and wrapped up rather early, I might add.
Yes.
And I won't be
Oh,
I actually realized that today. Thank you for the 3-month warning.
What?
If there's
there's any issue with the minutes, I'll make sure I reach out, so you guys don't have to.
Hold them anymore, okay.
Mr. Chair, should I be aggrieved that my name is no longer on the motion?
Which motion?
The last two.
The
I
minutes?
say that jokingly, but I call it out because.
So you notice
just in
you notice
case.
you got fired?
Did I get fired from a volunteer board suite?
On, which one?
The last two.
The
The mi-
motions.
Yeah, Dragani's on there, so if you look at the voting, his name's not listed.
Oh,
So if I was to happen to sit on that, it would make it.
no, not at all.
More clerically hard.
Ms. Peoples, were you trying to send him a hint?
So when are you gonna let some of the alternates sit on some places?
Next week, next meeting.
Well, we typically, and maybe I'll just reinsert this, we ask that every once in a while, a primary member sits down for one case every once in a while. You're welcome to do that, Mr. Tripp, and that would
I
be.
may just not show up.
Okay, but make sure you show up for the next one.
Well, noting that I believe we have 3 cases scheduled for next meeting,
Yes, you do, yep.
so there's 3 alternates that get to sit, Mr. Tripp.
December the 4th?
If you would like, you
December the
can
4th?
sit out on one of those, and then we'll have 2 alternates sit on one
No, I'm
case.
talking
How's
about
that?
the
You can sit there with your feet up on the desk and, all right.
Don't start.
Well, I guess we can adjourn. I'd
Okay.
like to ask Mr. Corbett something. Office of the OPD. The OPD,
The trainer?
Office of Public, yeah, sorry. Too many acronyms, right, Mr. Tripp?
Say again?
Yeah, yeah, too many acronyms.
He's a Navy.
Office of Planning and Development, correct? These are the most recent releases? Have we seen those?
Have we seen them yet?
Yes.
I do not believe so. I know there was a training, I want to say it was this upcoming weekend?
Okay.
But I have not glanced in yet to see what came from it.
Ms. Robidoux has been very helpful in this in the past, so I think we want to try and get any updates with case law and whatnot distributed to the board. So I will send her an email and ask her for that aid, and Mrs. Peoples will know where that resource is in the future as well. So, all right, didn't mean to set you in a trap,
That's
Mr.
okay.
Corbett.
I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving since we won't be here.
Same to
you, Mr. Burgess.
Thank you very much. And with that, happy Thanksgiving from Mr. Burgess. We'll say an all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.